Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. Previously, we worked on updating our battle scene, and we added support for being able to switch monsters. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to the source code up to this point, as well as the complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up, so let's get started. So now that we've updated our battle state machine to support switching active monsters during battle, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on adding support for allowing us to switch to a monster when our active monster gets knocked out. So currently, we have logic where if our active monster gets knocked out, we go ahead and end our battle and we have our player get healed. Instead of having that happen, we're going to first check to see if our player has any other active monsters, and if so, we'll go ahead and show our monster party scene. That way our player can go ahead and select another monster to use to continue the battle. And so to get started with these changes, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start in our monster party scene. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a new field for when we start our scene. So then that way we'll know that we transition here from our battle scene and that we have a monster that was knocked out. And when that happens, we're going to require the player to select a monster before we actually go back to our previous scene. And then that way we kind of lock them in until we choose a monster to go ahead and use. So to go ahead and support this change, what we're going to do is let's go ahead and copy our property here, and we're going to go ahead and add a new property. And we're just going to go ahead and call this active monster knocked out. I'm going to go ahead and just paste over the description for our field. And so for active monster knocked out, this will just be a Boolean flag, and it's going to go ahead and indicate if our active monster was knocked out. And so with our new field, what we're going to do is let's go down to our go back to previous scene method. And what we're going to do in this method is if we are in our battle scene and this field is set to true, then we're going to go ahead and show a message to the player. If it's not set to true or we're not in our battle scene, then we'll go ahead and do our existing logic that we have today. And so let's go ahead and add an if statement. We'll do if, we'll do our scene data. We'll go ahead and do our active monster knocked out, if that is set to true, and our scene data, previous scene name, is equal to our battle scenes, is equal to our scene keys and our battle scene, and we did not select a monster, so not was monster selected. Now we want to go ahead and show a message to the player. And so let's go ahead and do this. We'll do our info text game object. We're going to go ahead and use our set text method to go ahead and update our text. And we're just going to say, you must select a new monster for battle. And then we'll go ahead and add in our line for to wait for input. So we'll do waiting for input. We'll set that equal to true. And we'll go ahead and do a return. All right, so now what we'll do is let's jump back over to our battle scene. And the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add a new property to our class. And so we're going to need a property to keep track if our active monster was knocked out. So we'll go ahead and add a new property. Let's do active monster knocked out. This is going to be a Boolean, so we'll go ahead and copy our type here. We'll go ahead and paste that. Then we'll come down to our init method, and we're going to go ahead and set that default value, and we're going to go ahead and do false. All right, so then next what we'll want to do is we're going to go ahead and go to our post-battle sequence check method. All right, so what we're going to want to do is if our active monster is knocked out, we're going to want to go ahead and check to see if we have any other active monsters that have HP greater than 0, and if they're not equal to the current active monster. So very similar to the logic we did for when we did our switch monster. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to come down to our switch monster state. I'm going to go ahead and copy that code here for our other active monsters. And then what we'll go ahead and do is let's just go ahead and paste that. And so what we're doing is we're just looping through our monsters, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that at least one of them has HP greater than 0, and their ID does not equal our current active monster's ID. And so then what we'll do is we're going to see if they have no active monsters. So if they don't have any active monsters, then basically what we want to do is we want to go ahead and run the exact same logic that we had today. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to go ahead and move into our if statement. And so we have no active monsters. We'll go ahead and display our message about escaping, and then we'll go ahead and transition to our finished state. And then what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and do return, and that way we stop running our logic. If we do have active monsters, now what we'll want to go ahead and do is we'll want to go ahead and transition to our switched monster state, and then that way we can go into our monster party scene. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get rid of this to do. We're going to go ahead and update our message. And so we're going to go ahead and say your monster fainted. And then we're going to say choose another monster to continue the battle. And so what we'll want to do is instead of doing our player knocked out, we're going to go ahead and use our new property we added. So we're going to go ahead and do active monster knocked out. We'll go ahead and set that equal to true. And then we'll go ahead and transition to our switch monster state. All right, so next, let's go ahead and jump down to our switch monster state. And so what we want to do is when we go to transition to our monster party scene, we want to go ahead and pass in that new property. So we're going to go ahead and pass in our active monster knocked out. And we'll go ahead and do this. we'll do our active monster knocked out, and we'll go ahead and save. Oh, and then real quick, let's jump over to our monster party scene. Yes, we need to change this to a Boolean. It's not supposed to be a number. All right, so to go ahead and test our changes, what we're going to go ahead and do is let's go ahead and open up our monsters JSON file. And so for our Iguana, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and update our current HP. We're going to go ahead and set it equal to 5. And then let's go ahead and jump into our preload scene. And we're going to go ahead and transition to our title scene. So we'll go ahead and reset our data. So let's go ahead and do a new game. We'll go ahead and save. And let's go ahead and update back to battle scene. All right, so go ahead and test. Let's go ahead and do our battle. We'll go ahead and fight, so that way Iguana gets knocked out. And then we should see our new message about continuing battle. And we can take it to our monster party scene. So let's go ahead and choose Ignivolt. We'll see we bring out Ignivolt, and then we see our enemy monster attacks us. So we have our core logic working, but now we need to do some more updates to our existing state, so then that way we have the optimal flow. And ideally what should happen is if our active monster gets knocked out, we would go ahead and bring out our new monster, and then we go back to player input. And so currently right now, our logic is making it so our enemy attacks us, and so we'll need to add some logic to handle the case where our monster was knocked out. Alright, so go ahead and make that change. Let's jump over to our battle scene, and we want to come into our state, we'll go ahead and bring out our monster. And so what we'll want to do in a bring out monster state is when we do our check to see if we're switching our active monster, we'll just want to make sure we're not switching because we were knocked out. So, and not active monster knocked out. And if our monster wasn't knocked out, then we go ahead and do enemy input. If it was knocked out, then we want to go ahead and go to player input. And so we'll go ahead and reset our field when this happens. And so we'll do this. Our active monster was knocked out. We're going to set that equal to false. And we'll also do the same thing for switching active monster because we're no longer switching. Let's go ahead and set that equal to false as well. So now if we come back to our scene, we should be able to test. So if we go ahead and fight, we should get knocked out. All right, and now if we go ahead and select our other monster, we'll bring out our monster, and then we'll be taken to our player input, so that way we can go ahead and continue our battle. All right, so we're just going to do a few more changes to our battle scene. And so one of the ones we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and update some of our code that was tied to when we heal our monster. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a search for our to-do. And so we left a to-do here where we want to go ahead and update our monster health once we have multiple monsters. And right now we have it hard-coded to our 0 index, so our first monster in our party. And what we'd actually want to go ahead and do is use our active party monster index. And so we're going to do our active player monster party index, and then that way we go ahead and use our item on the correct monster in our party. And so one other change we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and add logic to handle when we first start our battle to grab the first monster that is actually eligible to fight. So currently when we go ahead and start our battle scene, we are grabbing the first monster from our party data that we pass in. And we're using that to go ahead and choose which monster should be brought out. As we come down to our create method, you'll see here we're just grabbing that first monster. But what we would actually want to do is make sure that monster we grab, they actually have HP to go ahead and fight. So to see an example, if we go ahead and jump over to our monsters JSON file, if we go ahead and change Iguana starting HP to be 0, and let's go into our preload scene, we'll go ahead and reset our data real quick. Do new game, we'll go ahead and save. We'll jump back to our battle scene. And so what will happen is now we bring out Iguana, he has no HP, and so in theory, and so you'll see we bring out Iguana even though he has no HP, and he shouldn't be eligible to battle because he's actually fainted. So what we're going to go ahead and do is back in our battle scene, we're just going to go ahead and have a check to grab our first monster where their HP is greater than 0. And so go ahead and do that. We're just going to do const. We're going to go ahead and do eligible monster index, and we're going to set that equal to this, our scene data. We're going to go ahead and grab our player monsters. We're going to do find index, and we want to go ahead and find our monster where our monster that current HP is greater than 0. And then what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and update our active player index. And so we'll do our active player monster party index. We're going to set that equal to our eligible monster index. And then we can go ahead and just assign that down here when we go ahead and grab our monster. So now if we go ahead and save and let our scene refresh, what should happen is now we go ahead and bring out Carno Dusk right away. And we go ahead and skip Iguana because he has no HP. Alright, with that brings this video to an end. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and work on updating our battle scene UI to go ahead and have indicators of how many monsters are in our party. So as a reminder, there is a link in the description of the video to the complete source code for this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hitting the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more Great Phaser 3 content, please see the links on your screen now.